the young generation today, people want to become very wealthy overnight. Whether people are getting into AI, Bitcoin, or whatever it may be, ultimately, you have to move. You have to move, and you can move fast, but you have to move with caution. And who you deal with, what you deal with, and the people around you, just it really, really makes a difference. Seeing the struggles of my family in a good way, not in a bad way, coming to a new country is quite something to watch and quite something to experience. And then when it comes to me, my siblings, we relatively, thank God, all became successful. It wasn't an option to be not successful.
On this edition of Mind Your Business, I'm catching up with Alan Azoulay. Alan is president of Azcorp Properties and AZ Financial Group and founder of the Sephardic Legacy Series, an initiative devoted to preserving Sephardic Jewish heritage. Alan's work has brought him to global stages, engaging leaders and institutions worldwide. His story is one of ambition, resilience, and continual reinvention. It is my pleasure to once again welcome Alan Azoulay to Mind Your Business. Alan, thank you so much. Reb Yehuda, thank you for joining me here on Mind Your Business.
Thank you, Yitzchak, for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Amazing. So I'm going to jump in. Alan, you've had quite a journey. Can you start, please, by sharing a bit about your background and what influenced you, especially early on in life? You put out Sfarim. It's many books established. We're going to get into it in the show. But what was the drive so early on? Very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you so much again and for having me on the show. So essentially my journey is quite a rare journey, and there's a lot to say. Okay. If you see me getting a little emotional, so be it. But I would say it stemmed from my background. Ultimately, my parents, my siblings, my family, my community, that was the nucleus and the foundation to my entire success. So there's a famous saying in Arabic, you can leave your country, but your homeland stays in your heart. And that's the theme that I grew up, where my background's initially Moroccan and first generation Canadian. And essentially what drove me to success was through my challenges. When I grew up as a young child, let's say in elementary school, I had a lot of reading comprehension issues. I felt completely low self-esteem, a lot of challenges. So that was one issue. But initially, if I go back to my roots, there was a lot of challenges. For example, my great-grandfather got beheaded in Morocco, and that left my grandfather to not have a father. So him and his brother, basically the story in a nutshell was my great-grandfather and my great-uncle were once on a caravan. They were traveling, and one of their employees killed him in a hotel or in a motel or something like that sort. So that gave a lot of trauma to my grandfather, which affected the home, which led to even my mother. Now, so that was one incident. When my other side of the family, my father fought in the Six-Day War in 1967. My grandfather fought in the 1948 war, the War of Independence. So there's a lot of war, there's a lot of trauma, but there's also a lot of greatness as well. My great-grandfather was an accountant for the Spanish Army. Morocco was divided by two, and by the French and the Spanish. So the level of resilience and the trauma and the notion of just succeeding, especially when moving in different demographics from Morocco to Israel, Morocco to Canada, or the US, gave them, that next generation, no choice to be successful. And from that gave me, my siblings, as being first generation, a lot of strength. My father married my mother. He always told me with $20 to his pocket. And from that, he built a successful business, and supported us, and we didn't lack anything. And all these nuances of one's DNA from really trickle down to one, presently today. And I feel that, and I felt that. And there's a lot of sentiment and levels of spirituality from my great-grandparents and grandparents. And that gave me the ultimate bedrock with the foundation of my success, leading to my own issues and challenges, which made me, I guess, decently successful in the world we live in today.
Now, Alan, you accomplished a tremendous amount early on. And I would like to even go through some of the specifics. Writing books, starting businesses, even founding a nonprofit, a major nonprofit in the Toronto area.
Yes.
What fueled that level of ambition? Now, we're not talking about the challenges, but
Sure.
the ambition at a young age.
Ultimately, it's a great question. Ultimately, I just never gave up. I never gave up. I said to myself when I was a child, if I'm not successful now, I'll be guaranteed successful later on in my life. And that's what it really was. It gave me, there was, in school, in elementary school, they gave out 2 awards. They gave out the Effort Award and the Achievement Award. And ultimately, it's just an award. But the effort one, I always got. I never got the achievement one. So it was my ultimate effort. And I would say my parents' input and effort towards giving me tutors and all that support as a young child. It was just my will, never giving up. And there's a famous line from Winston Churchill. It says, your success is measured by your ability to move forward one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm. So I could keep on failing, but as long as that emphasis of positive notion to continue and being successful is still there, eventually you will be successful. So there's many different components of that, but what fueled it was the aspect and the notion of never just giving up.
By the way, if I
Sure,
may,
sure.
thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
That a school would have 2 different types of awards, because
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
achievement is what's rewarded. But at the end of the day, success in life, in general, comes down to effort.
Correct.
It's the one, there's a quote from Ted Williams, I don't remember what it was, and he was the only player to hit 400 or almost 400. But, he talked about going out there until the blisters were on his skin. People, they marvel at success thinking that, like, okay, snap your finger, you win the lottery. It doesn't work that
That's
way.
right.
There are some people that win the lottery, great. But that's the exception, not the rule.
That's right.
The rule is tenacity.
Correct. And the issue today in the educational system, which a part of it I believe failed, and I'm sure they'll eventually change it, whereas the fact that they're focusing on the mark, you have to get 90%, 95%, whatever it is, there's so little emphasis on one's child's work and ethic, and I guess, not ethics, sorry, the drive to be successful. There's no mark on that.
And at the end of the day, success in life is to a very big degree determined by the drive.
Correct.
And especially to get up after, get knocked down. And, we think of the Energizer Bunny. Right?
Yep.
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 Just keeps on coming back. Now, every career has defining moments.
Yep.
And you have, so many moments because, remember, as it relates to writing books, as it relates to building businesses, to, what was there a point in your life that changed your perspective in a major way?
It wasn't just one instant. One instance, it was multiple. I would say the first one, like I said earlier, was reading comprehension, which I took my weakness to my strength. I actually mentioned on the previous podcast. I'm not going to elaborate on that now. I did in the past. There was the second one was a particular teacher by the name of Mr. Chaim Klein. May his memory be blessed. And he saw within me the potential. It was in 10th grade. I was not into reading, and he saw my effort. And he created this world of appreciation of knowledge, of academics, of Torah scholarship. And from that, he cultivated within me, and I would even go to his home after school hours. And it was just very, very special. And he gave me books. I gave him books. We're sharing. And then I look back, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm actually reading now. And today, the world we live in, unfortunately, people are reading less. So the fact that I have that and he instilled that in me and gave me that confidence is great. He was giving me from his history books to economic books, whatever it may be. And then I took my own passion, which is Sephardic history, and I applied it. So for me, I have tremendous credit. And as well as being an author, ultimately changed my perspective as well. I started off with one book, led to an entire organization. I did many delegations to Ottawa and the Canadian Parliament, to U.S. Congress, to the Palace in Morocco. And I felt I sort of switched my tone. I started off with books, ended up in politics, and then circled back and where politics was not my forte. And I would say that, and as well as attending Yeshiva University was one of the things that changed my perspective as well, where it gave me, where I appreciated the aspect of balancing the world we live in, and as well as the academics. So there's many different components, as well as business challenges, which we'll discuss later on, changed my perspective in many ways. So it wasn't just one episode of my life. As we go along through this different seasons and experiences, those certain aspects affect one's perspective of change. And so it can never just be one incident. And that's essentially
now,
it.
By the way, it's very, very beautiful and touching how you identified your 10th grade teacher, if I remember correctly. How he saw in you the potential.
Correct.
Even though there was a challenge. And look at the result.
Thank you.
You wrote, was it 5 books?
7 books.
7 books, I'm sorry.
Published
7 books.
Published 12, 7 books I've written, thank God.
And it's because of an individual that saw potential where others didn't.
Correct. And I think the story should resonate to anyone who's watching, where if their child has an issue in academics, reading comprehension, whatever it may be, I really think that if there's a lot of emphasis and the parents should put away their cell phones and literally dive into the world of their child and give them, whether it's tutoring, whether it's the one-on-one, taking them out and giving that attention. That's the most vital, important thing that a child really needs, is that one-on-one presence. I think that there's a guarantee for success. So, yeah.
Now, this is a delicate question,
Sure.
and I feel it's just, what was special about this is that you allowed me the space. You say, Yitzchak, kind of ask me anything, because you've been, you have
to a certain degree, but yeah.
To a certain degree. So I'm not going to ask you for your Social Security on the, etc. But during challenging seasons, many people just get stuck.
Yeah.
What helped you continue moving forward when you ran into certain either overwhelming or challenging situations? Is it okay for me to ask?
Of course, absolutely. So I would say it's 2 things, but it's sort of intertwined. Is emunah, a deep, steadfast in faith in God, and prayer. And my level of prayer, of tefillah, has increased tremendously. I don't stop praying. I lean on it. I depend on it. And for anyone who is in faith, doesn't matter what faith, if they're listening to this podcast, right, it's tremendous help psychologically, emotionally, and to believe in God. So ultimately, prayer, tefillah was a big one. And surrendering control and embracing faith was really, really ultimately it. I depended on Hashem, on God, and that really, there was no other choice. And when I started reading more books on emunah, on faith, and it gave me strength, and it really, really gave me strength. And we go through seasons of different challenges, just like there's different weather, seasons. There's also emotional seasons, and it's how we challenge and how we respond to it. So, and how we respond, for me now, I'm going to consistently do that, is, I guess, connect and lean to God and lean to Hashem. And that's what I plan to do, for God willing, the rest of my life. There was one story, if I may say, an elderly lady on Shabbat, on Shabbat, where she would basically, after davening, after tefillah, after prayer, the whole synagogue would leave, and they would go to Kiddush and Kiddush, right, and the whole shul was empty. I was reading there in the back. The synagogue was empty. I attend a very large synagogue in Toronto. And this lady would go and pray by the Hechel, by the Sefer Torahs. And I saw her just pour her heart. And she was there for 5 or 10 minutes. And it stuck within me. And it resonated. Eventually, this lady passed away. And from that point on, I said, I'm going to make it my point. When everybody's gone and I guess mingling and having, a nice social scene, which is completely fine. At the end of the day, I'm going to take that moment and connect to God. And I saw this lady trembling as if God was in front of her. And not everybody could do that and have that sentiment and have that special quality of connecting to God, this older lady. I certainly have it for my grandparents, maybe not to the level of her. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is to lean on your family, to lean on your friends, to lean to God, onto God. And that's really what it comes down to when moving forward in life. And when you have this overwhelmingly challenge, then you have to really navigate it and not just put yourself in the rut and put yourself in the hole. You have to think of the positive notions of life and all these things. And that's ultimately the best approach, in my opinion.
Alan, that was very special. You've held leadership roles where people looked up to you for guidance. Now, there's a tricky question because, it's lonely in the top seat.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about
There
it.
are times when, I don't want to say one is having a bad day because, we pray, we daven, we always want to, have an amazing day. But, sometimes the weather, as, we pointed out, everything is a blessing from God. And however, sometimes the challenge we don't see right away, the blessing in the challenge. But there are people looking up to you. So my question is really a two-part question. How do you, what's your guidance to a leader to maintain composure, almost like Captain Sullenberger, he's got to land that plane and make sure everyone survives, even though he knows the challenge, how great it is. And the other part is, on a day-to-day basis, how many people are turning to you that they're relying on me, I better not let them down.
Really, really great question. One day I actually wrote down during a very rough time that actually how many people, I guess depend on me. And I started adding up the numbers of not just family, not just friends, but employees, people who depend on me as recipients for my nonprofit. There's an organization that I run where over 50 families depend on, myself, my organization on monthly, and we distribute over $250,000 a year. Point being, then I added my tenants, and then this, and then people who help me for my nonprofits and for my books. And the number is a pretty high number. And I said to myself, okay, I really have to focus and keep the eye on the prize through each challenge. And that's ultimately what it was. And I said to myself that these people are depending on me, even though I may have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month or whatever it may be. I have to really, really focus. And I know that they depend on me. So I have to go back to my old self in terms of where I was when I was during my high times and when I had my own strength. So I depend, it's a very interesting aspect to look at it, when I had my high times of my life, when I was succeeding and just moving mountains. And that's where I depend on my strengths to go back and to give me further strength.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. And it's a very important mindset, especially for people out there that are watching this episode, and dreaming the I don't want to say the hot seat, but the seat of the executive seems like a glorious position, and there are some very nice aspects to it, but yet at the same time, the mindset, there are so many, whether it's dozens, whether it's hundreds or it's thousands that are relying on me, I must come through.
That's right. Yeah.
Alan, over the years, once we're talking about leadership, what's, if I may, what's one leadership decision, what's one leadership lesson that you would say it's a fundamental lesson that really any executive needs to be mindful of in order to either make decisions or evaluate opportunities?
It's a combination of many aspects. For me, through my experience, I used to analyze real estate. Okay. I still do, but I didn't analyze so much the actual person involved.
Okay.
So I could do the numbers, what the cap rate is for multifamily, which is my space, particularly in Connecticut and so on, but I didn't follow suit in terms of who brought me the deals and how they deal properly and ethically in business. And that was a mistake that I had in one scenario back in 2022, where a group of investors, including myself, this is a one-time thing, only happened, and I believe it will never happen again due to my experience and further due diligence, not just on underwriting a property, but as well as underwriting a person. And that's where I think my personal experience is dependent on. Again, it's based on it's based on per case scenario, but that was mine. So it's really, really underwriting the person when it comes to business. That's again my experience. Everybody has different experiences, and so to evaluate the opportunities, it's a combination of rational, in terms of seeing the numbers, but it's also emotional. You have to have a good gut feeling.
Now, later on, I have a very
Sure.
important question on that. But talking about bouncing back, so you've managed to, bounce back with impressive speed. What was the very first step that set things back in motion?
Positive mindset. That was really it. I
So
put
true.
my mind where I just focused on the goal, on the task at hand, day by day, having one line item day by day. I'll never forget a quick story.
Please.
I was sitting in a guy's office, an investor of mine, and this particular person, no names mentioned, of course, probably worth at least over 100 million. And he had one thing in front of him. He didn't have a laptop, didn't even have a cell phone. It was on the side. And he had a list, and each list had a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it may be. And he told me, every single day I wake up and I rewrite this list. And that is my goal. And if I don't get it done, I just beat myself to it. And and eventually he will get it done. So in other words, you have to focus on and stay positive within that realm of those line items. And I would say what made me go back and I guess get back in motion, like you said, was I got back to working out. Believe it or not, I got back to giving more time to my children. Believe it or not, something new, a little bit of meditation. You could call it prayer, call it whatever it is, but I combined the two. And I created a very regimented schedule that I've never had in my life, where I take my kids to school, whatever it may be, and then go working out. And a schedule that made it more challenging for me, that I've never had before. Minute by minute, hour by hour, because I have a very busy lifestyle and a very busy life. And in order to be successful, you have to really calculate, your day. And, I understand man, plan, and God laughs, and we really can't calculate everything, but ultimately we still have to have that schedule in. And ultimately it comes in from cultivating, back to your question, a positive mindset's the right answer.
Now, this goes back to something you touched on before, and I
Sure.
couldn't wait to get to this. Leaders often talk about intuition, that sixth sense. How do you personally balance instinct with rational thinking when making important choices? And just to hold on to that, there's a book, I think, Go With Your Gut, right?
Yes, I heard of
But
it.
yet at the same time, we're all human, and we could be emotionally attached to something, and then it will cause us to potentially be, I don't want to say blinded, but, to kind of ignore certain realities before us because we're emotionally attached. So how does a leader balance that, the gut, your instinct, with actual, data, if you will?
I would say it's flexibility and of the rationale and the gut feeling and the emotional part. It's a very hard balance. The Rambam Maimonides, and he discusses the fine balance, the benoni, the medium of the individual. It's easy to be extreme, and it's easy to be extreme to the right, to the left. My point is balancing on anything of life is very, very difficult. To walk that fine middle of the road is extremely hard. And the same thing with here, with whether you have a rational decision or you have to hear both approaches. And then to combine it, it's a case-by-case scenario like we were mentioning earlier. It's hard. It's really, really, really hard. I think that based on each scenario, you have to do your proper due diligence and your proper throughout your experiences as well. But ultimately, you have to, instead of choosing one side, a combination can lead to stronger, more sustainable outcomes. So that's, I guess, my perspective.
Yeah, and it's really it's an important question because and the answer is very good about balance. Meaning, someone can't try to make it so simplistic to say, okay, you have to pick one or the other.
No.
Are you going to pick? Going to go with your gut, or you're going to? No, you have to. You have to somehow factor in both
right.
in order to help you come to a really
Correct.
sound
Yep.
decision. Yeah. Now, Alan, you've described personal growth as as a process, a real process. What were the first signs that that you implemented in order to start rebuilding? And
You have to go where the core is, and the core of any human being is mental health, which is a discussion that we don't have too often today. And there's a famous line, it's okay not to be okay. Where we have our days that are down and our scenarios of life that brings us very, very hard challenges. And it's the emotional and mental well-being of the individual, the family member. I had a cousin who passed away from mental health. I don't need to get into it. But mental health is everything. And if the mental health is not there, your physical is not there. Your whole sustainability of your existence is not there. So that is the core. So I had to go, for the first time in my life, check up on myself and see that it's okay. That, my whole life was perfect, nearly perfect. And then for the first time for the past few years, unfortunately, it wasn't. And one bomb after the next. And that I had to just check up on myself. And it takes a lot of power and effort to do that. And it was fine to not be okay. And I did it through, whether it's therapy, speaking to rabbis, speaking to friends, and having people that you could depend on. And that gave me the strength. And I'm actually a better person today from going through those challenges. I'm a better father, just better person, better friend. And I think this process allowed me to be a more wholesome person. And when you go through life's experiences, it's okay to get knocked down a little bit, and to come back up, it's hard. But when you come back up, you come back stronger.
Am I allowed to ask, we're now at, this show is being recorded in late 2025. How old is your oldest?
17.
Wow.
17-year-old girl.
Lots of nachas.
Thank you.
Nachat.
Yes.
You talked about it before and want to, bring it back in. Your family history and heritage are central to your identity. How have they influenced your strength? It's kind of almost like I want to ask this question because, again, your heritage, and for those that know that you're a descendant of the Chidah, how has that, your history, your heritage, influenced your strength, values, and overall outlook?
So I love that question. It's dear to my heart. My background, my Sephardic background, gave me the strength to be where I am today. Simply because I saw within the older generation the simplicity. And that exists with pretty much any generation. Doesn't matter what type of demographic, Sephardic or Ashkenaz. But like for Ashkenazim, it's the old shtetl, the old world, and for the Sephardic, it's the emunah pshuta, which is the simplistic emunah, the simplistic belief in God and belief in Hashem. And seeing that and nurturing it and taking it in and seeing that old generation really have maybe an old soul. And applying it to a modern day is quite challenging. It gave me the strength to navigate where a community and a people went through so much. People do not talk about, people talk about refugees and so on. I'm not going to get into politics, but people do not talk about the Sephardic story where they got kicked out of all the Arab countries. And it's a story that has not been properly told. Over 1 million Jews have been kicked out. And their story is a story that yet has to be properly told. So point being is, I believe it's the emunah, it's the simplicity, it's the background, it's the culture, it's the family dynamics, it's this quality that doesn't exist today. And that gave me the strength to be a better person, to just carry myself and have so much strength and resilience from the background, from my background. And especially being first generation, let's say if you have a fourth generation American Jew, it's not the same. So seeing the struggles of my family in a good way, not in a bad way, coming to a new country is quite something to watch and quite something to experience. And then when it comes to me, my siblings, we relatively, thank God, all became successful. It wasn't an option to be not successful.
Right.
So,
now, Alan, through everything, and I personally enjoy this question because I have Hakorat Atov. I have when I worked on my own book, I met with you and you gave me some very important tips.
Thank you.
Now, your daily writing, your daily writing regimen, I guess, never stopped. How did that discipline to write and the amount of titles that you've published, how did that become a stabilizing force for you?
It was creating consistency. Mm-hmm. Consistency is the best thing for success, and ultimately it also gave me the aspect of inner peace. So I depended on it, and it allowed me to focus on my feelings, on my intellect, the writing. So it gave me strength, and through the consistency of writing and through that inner peace that it gave me, it calmed me down, and within both aspects, it allowed me to constantly write. So it was a habit, and and it still is. Almost 20 years now. I've been writing, and it gives me strength, and I'm not going to stop.
You know, it's amazing, and I've heard this from leaders over the years. Consistency is so key. You know, people sometimes think that like what's better? You know, let's just say, if it's okay, we'll use an analogy from baseball. You know,
Sure.
Someone who, you know, he may come out and hit that afternoon he'll go 3 for 4, and then he'll knock in 4 RBIs, but then he'll go cold for next 12 to 15 games, and then he'll hit he'll hit a grand slam, but it's not consistent. What's better, this person who just, you know, kind of once in a while or the person you could count on this person? He's gonna hit 300, but pretty much day in and day out, you're getting a solid performance.
Correct.
Even though that's not necessarily the way you applied it, is that the writing also gave you peace of mind. You were able to connect with something that you love and you're passionate about, but also the importance about maybe I could even hold on to that.
Sure.
Talk about the importance about certain regimens, certain elements of your day that if they're consistent, day in and day out, you could see goals, you know, come to fruition, and also the peace of mind because you're tapping into something you do day in and day out.
That's right. I don't know how people are successful without consistency. That's the way I look at it personally. So consistency is everything, with even praying, showing up for your family, work. You have to have consistency within consistency.
Right,
And
right. It might seem like we're simplifying how important it is, but listen,
it's everything.
Anyone that's accomplished anything knows that, you know, through thick and thin, right? As the expression
That's
goes, that's consistency.
That's right.
Through thick and thin. Now, Alan, your definition of success, or you know what? Let me actually, I realize the way the question is written is your definition of success has evolved over time. You know what? Let me actually take a step back. Is it that way? A person has a definition of success. Is that something that there is some type of leeway that over time the definition of success can move?
Through my experience, it was success is with caution.
Okay.
So people in the young generation today, people want to become very wealthy overnight. Whether people are getting into AI, Bitcoin, or whatever it may be, ultimately you have to move. You have to move, and you can move fast, but you have to move with caution. And who you deal with, what you deal with, and the people around you, it really, really makes a difference. So the risk level could be high, but at the same time, it should just be with caution. It has to be this balance, like we were discussing earlier. Yeah. So it's a hard line to walk on, but it's success with caution. And I believe now, as you get older in life, you know, we were on this podcast
a couple of
years ago. You tend to become more conservative as time, because families get older and you just want to take care of them, and you don't want to have that high risk tolerance. So success, it's a moving target, and it evolves over time. It's not just, okay, you have to go and be a bull for the rest of your life. In your 20s and 30s, you think nothing's stopping you, but ultimately, you know, life's experiences slow you down, and it's okay to. And it's fine. It's nothing wrong. But, yeah.
This is a rather interesting question because you have a creative side to you, and at the same time, especially in the world of real estate finance, there's certain factors which are just, it is the way it is. Interest rates, there's certain factors that just, so my question to you is that, you know, a career in finance is not usually synonymous with the creative ability to write. You know, how do you, you know, balance this, the pragmatic side, you know, and then there's, you know, the creative side, I guess the left brain and the right brain approach. How do you
It's very rare. I do get that often.
Okay.
Where, let's say, if a person's an accountant or in business, they're just a regular businessman.
Right.
But they don't have that artsy or that creative mindset. So you're saying, in terms of your question, it's...
I'm turning to you as someone that, you know, has authored 7 books, been involved with many more. There's obviously a creative side in order to be, and I've read many of your books. There's there's the develop. It obviously involves the creative side. Yet at the same time, you have a major business in real estate finance. That's numbers.
That's right.
That's interest rates. That's dealing with banks. That's that's looking at ledgers and like there's a right brain and there's a left brain. How do you navigate leveraging the God's gift of being blessed in both areas?
So I'll tell you through my experience, it's actually very interesting. My background started off in education, and I have a master's degree from Yeshiva University. And where I'm trying to say is I started off in education, and I later moved on in business. I started writing my books for the sake of just knowledge and inspiring
Sharing,
people.
right?
Correct.
Inspiring and sharing.
That led, that creativity in terms of writing led to a different blessing later on, where I approached people to basically give me money towards funding books and projects and so on for the educational realm, which is that creative side. Mm-hmm. Later in life, it wasn't the opposite. Business came. And from it, I started approaching the same people. Hey, do you want to invest with me? So it's dancing in both parties, which is very rare. And I see a blessing in both. So I guess that's my, nature of who I am, and of having that creativity side, and as well as that entrepreneurial side. And it's a very delicate, but yet I love it. I love it because I'm happy with dancing in both parties, but at the same time, it's something that touches my heart in terms of the creativity part, because I get to inspire and educate. But in terms of the business part, that's just there's really not necessarily even just an answer for it. It's just who I am, and it allowed me to build my inner self. And I see that I'm like sort of two people in one, but ultimately one person. And I see that sensitivity role and the creative role that I could give to my kids, and as well as that business aspect that I could give to family, friends, and business associates, and so on. So it's interesting, and it's very rare, but this is, I guess, my nature of who I am.
So if I may,
Sure.
This is a question that probably people are thinking of on their own, is like, maybe you could share perhaps a suggestion. How could people like tap in order to find their inner self? Meaning, because there are people that are blessed and don't realize it, and don't realize the capacity that they have. What would be a suggestion perhaps that you could share to allow someone to find themselves and their passion and their potential?
I think it's reflecting on their inner self, and that takes a talent to be sensitive towards yourself as an individual. I'm coming more from like a psychological perspective.
Please.
And I remember a course in university specifically on this, where it's really hard to delve into yourself. And it sometimes takes certain experiences of life to really, like I was mentioning to myself, to focus on myself to make me a better person, or to make one a better person. I think it's really delving into your inner core and your inner ability. And it's hard. It's really hard to do that. So I think when a person stops working and stops focusing on anyone else and focusing on them, they're the best investment. At the end of the day, that individual, it's not your best friend, it's not even your spouse, it's you. And if you focus on yourself and you just keep on building yourself up, everyone around you is going to be better. So that's what I think. It's taking a moment of every day.
And that's a real timeout. That's like maybe even
most
turning
people
off the
don't
phone.
stop. You're always
Right,
on
yeah.
social media. You're working. You're going to the gym. You're doing whatever it may be throughout your life. Focus on yourself. Put yourself in a room. Put on some music, and whatever it is, or think, or just go to the library. Go for a walk. Listen to a podcast. I know a good one.
Thank you.
And focus on yourself. And it's hard. It's extremely hard. I think the more sensitive individuals who are more in tune with themselves could easily do this. And then from that point, they could take that, I guess, and really, grow from that and really
Absolutely.
Water that. And it doesn't have to always be about work. It doesn't. That's what I love about what I do. I don't wake up in the morning just focusing on work. I wake up on inspiring, on educating, helping families. It gives me the strength to move forward.
Now, Alan, currently you hold a bachelor's in liberal arts and a master's in science from YU, Yeshiva University, and hold other degrees and business licenses. Additionally, you are currently pursuing a doctorate for Jewish learning, which I find fascinating because you've already written 7 titles. Why are you doing that? If I may ask you on the spot, that's, perhaps you could explain, like, you're pursuing something, but you're, if I may say, you're obviously great at it. I've read your work, so please explain that.
Knowledge is empowering. That's, I think, the main core for what I want to do. So I think also in the Sephardic world, there's a growing interest in the history, at least from what I see within. And I'm going to be working on documentary films. That's my next stage. Wow. It's not just about books. Books are great, but we live in a world filled with YouTube and multimedia and so on. So it's sort of becoming unintentionally that authority in Sephardic studies, where it's an area in Israel in particular. It's very, very well studied and preserved. Mm-hmm. In America, it's not. So there's a group of, I guess, scholars from within that Sephardic, Ashkenaz, non-Jews alike, and it's something to take my next stage of life in terms of not just accomplishments and to have a title as a doctor or professor, no, but it's more for giving that kavod, giving that respect to Sephardic Judaism. And it's, I guess, wrapping up my, accomplishments or whatever it may be. But it's not necessarily for me. It's for the next generation to be inspired. That's what it really comes down to. Because me, I could read, I could educate myself, whether reading Hebrew, I understand other languages. It's really to inspire the next generation, and not just Jews, but non-Jews alike.
Now, if I may, I mean,
Sure.
the documentary series sounds fascinating.
It's starting soon, actually. Yeah, from the
How
UK.
far back? And this is going back to the 1400s, the 1500s.
So what we plan to do, it's a group from the UK, from England. They approached me. They said, what you're doing is great, but we want to take it to the next level. Wow. So we teamed up. It's a very large project. What we're going to do is 40-minute videos per country. So Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and it'll probably be eventually on YouTube. It'll be very professionally done. And it's never been done. And as well as one of the other works that I'm working on is a Sephardic encyclopedia. Not an old school Britannica encyclopedia, but more of a contemporary, easy read, pictures, and very dynamic. I don't know if it's going to be multiple volumes or just 1 or 2 volumes, but it's done. And again, this is to educate the uneducated and to educate the educated. And it's just needed. It's a part of the Jewish story. And unfortunately, it's not been published, documented well enough from every angle. And it's also rare, I think, to get someone who's Sephardic and religious to get this balance within preserving
and knowledge
Sephardic.
Of history.
Correct.
Background.
So it's I'm looking forward to the series. It's going to start, and I know it's going to be also Kiddush Hashem to the Jews, where it could discuss the story of the Middle Eastern and the North African Jews, of their story and their struggles, and it'll also tell the story of Israel properly from my perspective. But
now, Alan, something that's a trait about the show is that, like, wow, we're almost out of time, but I just have to get in this last question. Whether it's a leader, whether it's someone who's just facing some type of difficult chapter in their life, what's a message that you could share from your lifetime of experience, even though still young, but from the many challenges, the many different areas of accomplishment in life, whether it's writing, real estate, what's something, a good tip, advice that you could share?
Wonderful question. I would say ultimately it's to step out of your comfort zone. That's the only way a person will be successful, ultimately. And I think by stepping out of your comfort zone, that's really, really the nucleus of everything. If you continue on the same rhythm, you're that boring guy in a sense. But to be successful, you really, really got to get out of it. And let's say a person never worked out. And to start working out, it's a very, very big challenge to wake up and to go there and to drive to the gym or at home or whatever it may be. it's really in any aspect of life. It's coming out of your comfort zone and never giving up. Also, that's a big one. Never giving up. So within all of that, and there's no pain, no gain.
Right.
You know. So again, physically, let's say a person's at the gym, which I'm a big proponent of going to the gym. Is if you don't feel the pain, there's no gain. But it's really coming down ultimately to getting out of your comfort zone, and we could expand on that. But
And please, you know what? It's I know it's a, going out of the comfort zone is an important aspect, especially because we talked about consistency. Maybe you could expound on that. Just what would be a tip? Like, because listen, we're all creatures of habit, and day in and day out we'd have the same regimen. What would be even an example to say, okay, here's something to do to get out of your comfort zone? Is it taking a walk in the park? Is it going, doing something different? What would be a way to trigger someone to get out of the comfort zone?
Great question. I think it's changing your habits.
Okay.
Changing your mindset. It's a combination of many, many aspects. When you change your mindset, when you change I'll never forget in university, they told us the professor told us in Yeshiva University, to be successful in your studies. I mean, one could agree or disagree. You should within the library, you should change your seating arrangements. You should go on the second floor, the third floor, and this chair and that and that chair, so you could be in a different
different environment.
Correct. So that's one. Also, in the story of Lech Lecha, in the parsha, if I may say,
yeah,
God told Avraham Avinu, Hashem told Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha, and basically to get out of your comfort zone, and then God gave him blessing. So further blessings. So I think the same thing. So if a person, for example, wants to go and achieve another better position within the company, you have to do more. You have to show up more. You have to be creative. That is the root of success, is being out of your comfort zone. Any company, Amazon, whoever it may be, they're always creating these new components within their company, and Starbucks or whatever it may be.
Right.
So they have to be creative, and being creative is coming out of your comfort zone. Staying in the same position doesn't really work. Doesn't really work to be successful.
What a great way of wrapping up the show. Although this doesn't diminish the fantastic points that you shared, this wraps up a great edition of Mind Your Business. Alan, I can't thank you enough for schlepping out from Toronto, Canada, to join me here in the studio.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
That was an exciting episode with Alan Azoulay. Please feel free to leave your comments in the comments section below. And looking forward to connecting again on an upcoming episode of Mind Your Business.